got all the parts for now. What's the running done? We've got it all. Run it.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you all. If I could just ask you to take a seat, please, and we'll start the service in just a couple of moments. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Townsville Grammar School this morning. For those of you that I have not yet met, my name is Tim Kelly, the Principal of Townsville Grammar School. On behalf of the school, I extend a warm welcome to you all here this morning, as well to those who join us online. I also wish to welcome back to grammar the Muller family, who are represented this morning across 3 generations. Julie, Liam and Jonathan and your families, thank you for allowing the school the honour of hosting today's service. Today we acknowledge the life and contributions of a wonderful man. As a school today, it is an opportunity for us to demonstrate the strength of our community through our support for one another and to those who are important to us. Today's events have taken the work of our whole school community, from alumni to past staff, from the board chairman to our hard-working grounds and cleaning staff, and everyone in between, and we have loved it. The barriers that can be overcome and the magnificent things that can be achieved by a community all working together have been demonstrated today to honour Bill Muller. It is a rare privilege to be a Deputy Headmaster at one of Queensland's grammar schools. In a traditional grammar school, the Deputy is offered an opportunity to balance the life of their school. He or she walks a fine line between disciplinarian and pastoral carer, balancing the academic curriculum with the sporting and cultural lives of the students, balancing the need to motivate the tribe with the need to calm the over-enthusiastic, always walking the fine line between fairness and firmness. As a school leader, you walk the tightrope each day, mostly loving the challenge, but more importantly, as a leader like Bill understood, that by getting the balance right, that tightrope becomes the tie that binds a community. Bill's contribution to the Townsville Grammar School community is very significant, and his legacy will be long felt. Your obvious love of Bill tells me that he got the balance right, and this community meant so much to him. Whilst I did not have the luxury of spending a long time with Bill, I too have enjoyed the rare privilege of being a deputy at a Queensland grammar school. And through our chats, we shared many unique deputy experiences of rugby tours and experiences of students who drove us right to the edge of despair, but also brought great joy to our lives. And it is always the students who bring us the most satisfaction in our roles. I'm immensely honoured to welcome you to our school today to celebrate the life of William J. Muller and to celebrate the community by which we are all connected, our school, Townsville Grammar School. This morning's service will be led by Judge Stuart Durwood, AMQC, the chairman of the school's Board of Trustees, an old friend and foundation director of Grammar Old Boys Rugby Club with Bill. Stuart and Bill were made life members of the North Ward Old Boys Rugby Club on the same evening. It is my pleasure to invite the judge to lead today's service.
Good morning and welcome. William Bill Muller passed at the age of 79 years, born in 1941 and passed a few weeks ago this year. Bill was a wonderful educationalist and a student icon, loved, admired and honoured by all who were taught by him and who knew him. His wife and love partner of nearly 50 years, Julie, and their sons Jonathan and wife Narcissus, and Liam and wife Cassie, with sons George and Henry, join us for this memorial event. The school is grateful to have this opportunity to publicly remember Bill with them. Bill came to Townsville Grammar School in 1980. He and his family lived at the school in Gatehouse on Paxton Street. He was deputy principal from 1980 to 1989 and resumed his association with the school from 2003 as archivist, alumni commentator, historian, rugby enthusiast and friend. His attendance at a school function was marked by him being surrounded by students all eager to simply be in his company. He was a magnet to students past and present. His overriding focus in life after family was the school and kids, kids and kids. I have a recollection of two events that demonstrate his devotion to the school and to the students. Julie also remembers these. I think it must have been a fete during Richard Fairley's time as principal. I can't remember the precise date. Bill volunteered to sit on a dunking machine and thrilled the kids by being dunked many times with great acclaim by all who were present. And then there was another dunking into an ice bucket of some description that I remember. I'm not sure which was more daunting, but he participated with typical presence and enjoyment, happy to share the moments of fun with the students. Bill was born in South Africa in 1941. He was an avid reader and a learner in his youth. He attended Gilbert Rini School in Lusaka in Zambia, where he became head boy. After his training as a teacher, Bill returned to the school to teach and worked in the boarding house. He is still fondly remembered by the students who attended the school. Bill came to Australia in 1967 and settled in Perth. He was attracted to that city by the football, the cricket and the climate. His teaching career continued at Scotch College between 1967 and 1972, during which he studied part-time and earned his university degree. More importantly, he met Julie, and they married in 1971. They were married by Ev Blackman, who was the Scotch College chaplain. Ev is here today to join us in celebrating Bill's life, as is Kim Fraser, who was a boarding student in Zambia when Bill worked in the boarding house. After Scotch College, Bill and family moved east to Queensland and he taught at the Southport School from 1972 to 1975. In his first year, he was given what is described to me as being the arduous responsibility for drawing the school timetable, a task he had never done before. Such was his success that he received an amazing reaction from his new teacher colleagues. Bill and family then moved south to Ballarat and Queen's Anglican Grammar School and taught there in 1976 through to 1979. Of course, there then followed his move to North Queensland and his teaching career thereafter focused on our school here in Townsville. Bill's indefatigable focus on helping others perhaps can be demonstrated by the information that we received in a letter this week from Germany. Mr. Volker Schillmann wrote that 6 years ago he contacted Bill, who contributed Australian awareness and information for the making of a memorial to the courage and sacrifice of a crew of a Lancaster bomber aircraft that had participated in the renowned Dambusters operation near Volker's home in Germany in May 1943 during the Second World War. A past student of our school, Charles R. Williams, was the radio operator on the aircraft. Another Australian, Robert Barlow, was the pilot. The crew of the aircraft all died in the course of the operation when their aircraft was shot down. Volker described in his letter to the school Bill's contribution to the memorial project as a measure of international friendship and togetherness, a tribute that surely resonates in today's global environment. And Volker is online watching this ceremony at the moment. Then there is Bill in the rugby. The rugby was a very important part of his life and a very important focus for all of those who knew him. He was a foundation director of Grammar Old Boys Rugby Club and the first life member of its successor, North Ward Old Boys Rugby Club. Others this morning will speak to his life in rugby. Needless to say, it was a large part of Bill's life, and his contributions to the success of others in their rugby experience and careers was, as you will hear later this morning, immeasurable. Bill was dearly loved by students and highly respected by staff and others. He is sorely missed by Julie, their family, and all who knew him. He will be fondly remembered as a man who has touched the lives of so many students and others in a positive and enduring way in many communities, many schools, and particularly here at our Townsville Grammar School. Thank you.
Sorry, in the worlds of technology, we have technology failures. So before I start, I want to just make a small thing. In the interests of timekeeping, I am not my brother's keeper, but he's going to keep my time, and I'm going to do the same to him. So before we get to the detail of our speech, there are a great many number of people who need to be thanked for what is occurring today. So thank you firstly to the whole community of Townsville Grammar School, past and present, and everyone else who's been involved. In particular, Mr. Tim Kelly is the principal. Your offer to host the event today is very thoughtful. To the staff, past, present, teaching, sports, ground staff, cleaners, everyone who's contributed to today, thank you very much for your efforts in being able to get us to where we are now, particularly in the environment in which we find ourselves. So just calling out a few specific people who, shall we say, worked as an organising committee for this. Stuart Durwood, Crystal Scott, Chris Wilson, Sam Blanche. Thank you very, very much for the efforts, not just in the recent few days, but over the course of the number of weeks since Dad passed away. I think the conversations for today started not very long after that and have obviously progressed to deliver us what we have today. And most importantly, thank you very much to the students for what you are doing today, whether it's performance of music, showing the guests in the door, and just generally supporting this event. Dad always thought of students as the beating heart of the school, and our family thanks you for coming along and putting up with a number of old people who've probably not been here for a little while. And finally, a very big thank you to Mum for being Dad's rock, companion, friend, and over the last few years, full-time carer. The time that Mum has invested in Dad over the last number of years has obviously extended the time which we all had to appreciate his company. And you can keep my time, Jono, because I'm going straight off script. To also thank all those people who have come from all over Queensland to join us today, and all those people who are online. I know messages from people who I hope are watching online who said they really did wish to be here. And Mrs. Perry has also told me to make sure I speak slowly, so thank you, Mrs. Perry. William John Muller, Liam as a young man, Bill when he arrived in Australia, and later Sticks to his grandchildren, passed away on the 23rd of May this year. You never know why people leave us on certain dates, whether they choose to go or it's just something else. But I firmly believe that Dad chose that day, the 23rd, because he realised the FA Cup final wasn't going to be on that night. It was time to go. Now today there's going to be lots of talk about rugby. But in many respects, Dad's first sporting love, and in his own words, the game I really did excel at, was soccer. So I think he would have been disappointed that night when the FA Cup wasn't on and he wasn't going to get to see the Arsenal play. Because at that stage we didn't know that Arsenal was going to go on to make its 21st FA Cup final and beat Chelsea last Saturday, so we got 14 now, which is great. It's a record, more than any other team, so yeah. Dad loved his Arsenal, he loved soccer, and as a small boy I remember standing next to him on a Sunday night while he shaved, getting ready for the week. Sometimes I pretended to shave, and then I listened to the sports roundup at 5:45 on the radio, and the English First Division results were read out. We were dearly hoping for a 1-0 win to the Arsenal. And then the next Saturday, we'd wait all week to maybe watch the highlights of that 1-0 win in the mud at Highbury, and it was always worth it. So, Dad's history has been touched upon already by Stuart, but I have, a few more stories, anecdotes and comments to fill in on that. Dad's experiences growing up and attending school greatly influenced the teacher that he became. He boarded at one of the most prestigious preparatory schools in Pretoria, where he obviously would have met and interacted with a great number of other boys from often quite privileged white backgrounds. On the other hand, though, one of Dad's great loves was to play soccer with the local African boys in the street. So this experience of moving through the world has given or gave Dad a great ability to move across both social and cultural boundaries with ease. And I think if I went out there to tap, everyone out here, I think we would all be a very, very diverse group of experiences that we share with my father. He was equally a gentleman of repute in the presence of a woman, but also a larrikin rogue when with the lads. Stuart will probably be able to confirm that. I have many memories of seeing my father getting up to mischief with friends, where all laughed at the outcome, even when they were the butt of the situation. Dad completed high school at Gilbert Rennie School in Lusaka, Northern Rhodesia, and for the younger people, that is now Zambia. He truly immersed himself in sport and, when necessary, did a little study. As a student, he excelled at soccer, rugby and cricket, representing Northern Rhodesia in all three of those sports. But not only those sports, he also participated in tennis, athletics, and the pool as a butterfly swimmer. Even up until the very, very recent last few years, Dad still swam for fitness, and on his birthday, his challenge was to see if he could do 50 metres of butterfly. While Dad excelled at sport in his own right, he equally enjoyed coaching others, particularly in later life. And I think one of the key philosophies that comes through in that for me was that achieving your capability, that is personal excellence, was what he valued most. You didn't have to be the greatest sports person, but the act of getting out there and seeing how good you could be was what he wanted you to be doing. So if you were a true talent, he would be there to help you achieve representative honours. If your talent was to play third 15 and you needed some hard work to get there, that was where he wanted you to be, playing third 15. After completing his teaching degree in South Africa, Dad returned to the Gilbert Rennie School as a teacher, where he taught for 2.5 years. In the last few months, we've seen a great many posts coming out of Africa, whether it's from the Gilbert Rennie School and other places, with comments that could just as easily have been written by the students that he taught at Townsville Grammar School over the last 20, 30 years. They all spoke very highly of him and the impact that he had had on their life. However, the years in which Dad was in Africa were times of change. European colonial government was withdrawing, and Africa was commencing its transition to independent government. Following the death of his mother, Dad made the decision to leave Africa. Initially, he travelled extensively through Europe, the United States and Canada. And while travelling, he was told that Perth, Australia was a good place to live, with a climate similar to the Africa he knew. His experiences travelling the world also had a profound effect on Dad, as it initiated his love of Renaissance history, as anyone who has done the 11 and 12 curriculum, at least when I was doing it, I'm not sure where it is now. This gave Dad a real appreciation for art, architecture, and he was obviously also exposed to the writings of European thinkers and philosophers. Dad has obviously had a great many stories that he has wrapped into the history classes that he gave all his students over the years. And these are based on the experiences he had as a young man travelling through Europe, having his eyes open to the world, to the history and the influences of that culture. He also developed his appreciation of opera in this time. Dad was not necessarily musically talented, but he certainly did grow up in a musical household. His father was a musician with the South African Army, so obviously Dad would have attended quite a number of events. And I know that he has expressed a regret that he didn't follow through on learning the piano, and that was probably quite a bit to do with the limits that it might have placed on his ability to be outdoors kicking a soccer ball. However, Europe obviously planted the seeds of opera that have grown into his own appreciation that I can certainly remember of what used to play on the record player. After completing his travels through Europe and the Americas, Dad moved to settle in Perth, where he commenced further university studies so that he could teach. And while at university, as has already been mentioned, he met our mother, Julie, and we all know where that led. Sorry, I've got my two boys up here next to me, and they're playing around the gym like I spent a lot of my youth doing, with some friends who are here today, and we won't mention that, Mr. Kelly, how we used to get in. In 1980, we moved to Townsville, where Dad took up the role of Deputy Headmaster. We lived in the house next to the pool. It's now known as Gatehouse. So we had the best backyard in all of Australia. We could run around the ovals. We could ride our bikes. Well, my brother did. I learnt when I was about 14. I just chased after him. We could swim in the pool, and we could hang out with some of the boarders who were like big brothers to us. And before the gym was built, this was the gully. We could explore that. There was building sites happening, and we had the whole school as our playground. Dad was always around, and he made sure that he was always home to play with us in the afternoon. Whether it be a game of cricket, rugby, soccer, or anything which had us running around out on the top oval. However, he was always busy around the school. He spent time as head of boarding, and sometimes we would accompany him at night down to check on the boarders doing their prep, or even better, on a Saturday night when there was movie night. It was proper film canisters and a projector in the undercroft, which is now all built in, and you get a bag of lollies from the canteen, which was open. And 20 cents would get you a big bag of lollies to enjoy while watching a movie with your dad on a Saturday night. Rugby union had been played at Townsville Grammar School in previous eras, but league was the dominant sport in Townsville. Dad set about changing that and encouraged boys and also a few girls into playing the game. And in fact, there was one female touring member of the very first tour in 1982. The game of rugby was an opportunity for kids from Townsville to get out and see the world. As airline travel was becoming more accessible, there were direct flights from Townsville to Auckland, and the first rugby tours and later also netball began to flow between Townsville, North Queensland and New Zealand. Later, Dad led tours to Canada and also to the UK. And I'm in fact wearing the very first tie here from the 93 tour, which went to the UK, which is actually a misprint. So Dad kept it as his tie because it's got red on it rather than the black of the school. And at the end of this, Mr. Kelly, I'd like the school to take the tie so that they can put it in the school museum if they could. But Dad saw opportunity for kids on all those tours, and he worked tirelessly to help fundraise to keep costs down. There were cleaning up at the races every Friday afternoon. There were dances, there were raffles. Harps and Archie, there were raffle tickets, weren't there? Yeah. And lots of local community groups and businesses were asked to help out. He wanted the kids to get every opportunity. As the school approached its centenary in 1988, the Sevenoaks School, who were celebrating their 700th anniversary, were coming on tour, and the match was going to be the centenary fixture. However, the top field, which is now known as the Morwood Oval, was primarily a cricket field with a concrete pitch in the middle. A decision was made that the hockey field, which was covered in sparse dead grass and a lot of anthills, would become a rugby field. With a typical Townsville drought of 87 and 88, it made it difficult for the field to become... Sorry, I've got a little commentary going on the side here. So with a drought of 87 and 88,
was difficult for the field to become a rugby pitch of reasonable standard. However, hand watering was allowed. Luckily, there were a couple of irrigation hoses that could be plugged into the big taps, so the field would be watered after training by hand. I think there was about 4 people holding each hose so we could not spray them everywhere. And there were the boarders, the players, Dad, Mum, Jono and myself, all out there watering the field so that the field, as you now know as the Bill Muller Oval, could be watered and ready to play on. Dad never got to watch that centenary match. He just had his second heart attack and he was being asked to convalesce at home. Unbeknown to Dad, the players in the first 15 that year went up to Mum, knocked on the back door and said, "Could we use the backyard as the changing room?" So for the next 5 years, the first 15 had their own special changing room, which was the backyard of our house. There's so many things that I remember about Dad and around the school, and there's so many stories that people here are going to share. And he did love a story, as any of you sat in his history class would know. Some of the things about Dad was he liked to take the opportunity to sing badly in public whenever he could, something he passed down to me. He did once sing at a school dance, "I am the very model of a modern deputy headmaster," and he tic-tacked a penny skateboard down the aisle onto the stage. He was known for popping wheelies on his old yellow bike that he rode between home and school. And with dunking machines, probably before your time, Judge Durwood, he wore matching Looney Tunes tie and shorts while getting dunked repeatedly. Many times he spent lunchtime standing outside the canteen having an ice cream and chatting to the kids. But if there was mischief going on, like if you'd snuck into the toilets for a cigarette or you were in there for a fight, you'd hear, "Muller's coming!" and everyone would clear out. Dad saw education as not just the classroom. And I want to share, to finish for me, something he wrote in the 1983 school magazine. "I have come to know and understand students far better on the sporting fields of the school than in the classroom. It would be a sad day indeed when my legs become too tired or too old to carry me through a session at the nets, or a torrid session with the backs, or on the scrum machine with the forwards." I know that Dad is looking at us today and just enjoying seeing people coming together. So from all of us in our family, we thank you. And Henry is going to have the last word on his granddad. I've got a chair for him so he can stand up. Stand up so everyone can see.
My grandpa/Sticks was a very good grandpa. He told me stories and gave me hugs. He was very funny and all the time he smiled.
Daniel.
I'm about to call on Scott O'Neill, a past grammarian, 1999, and boarding student at the school. He's a sports master at an independent school in Townsville, a foundation member of the Grammar Old Boys Rugby Club, a member of the first under-19 team that was fielded by the club, a club captain, president, and now a life member of North Ward Old Boys Rugby Club, and current coach of the club's first grade team. For those of you who are hearing two clubs mentioned, the Grammar Old Boys Club joined with the North Ward Junior Club and formed North Ward Old Boys Rugby Club. So we're talking about the same group of people, the same club in an expanded form. Scott's going to tell you now about Bill's wonderful devotion and contribution to rugby at our school and more broadly, and also about his association, along with many others, with Bill as a student at the school. There is so much to say, but so little time to tell it. Scotty?
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you for the introduction. I would also like to thank Principal Tim Kelly for the opportunity today, and also to the Muller family, Julie, Jono, Narcissus, Liam, Cassie, Henry and George. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I often get asked why do I have such a passion for rugby union, and why for the past 24 years have I given up Tuesday and Thursday nights and Saturdays for 6 months of the year to support and play club rugby. Is it because you love the competition, or is it because you love to win? Is it because you love the pats on the bum or the smell of deep heat in the change room? Or is it the physical contact that brings you back week after week? I reply with, sure, those are all important, but it's more important than that. It's about the challenge of bringing 23 people together from different backgrounds, with different ability levels, and all with different character traits. It's about bringing people together to work as a unit, to achieve a goal. It's about the development of resilience, leadership, respect, and discipline. It's about the connections, the mateships, the coming together of humans, and the friendships, lifelong friendships. Bill Muller was a lifelong friend, a mentor, a supporter, a motivator to me and to many. The first interaction I can remember having with Bill was in November of 1995. I was in trouble. I was in Year 8 and I'd been sent to Bill's office. I had taken a radio into my Year 8 French lesson and I was listening to a live call of the Melbourne Cup during class time when the teacher busted me. And whilst I can't remember if I was given any sort of punishment by Bill or if he and I listened to the last two races at Flemington that day, what I do recall is walking into his office and seeing a considerable amount of rugby union memorabilia. There were signed rugby balls, ties, hats, photos. It was an amazing office. Straight away, Bill began to build a rapport with me. He asked questions about home, family, rugby, and sport. It was clear that Bill wanted to get to know me, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And this is common with everyone that I speak to about Bill. I've had many discussions about him and the connection he built with his students, staff, and parents. Little did I know at that time, but the trip to Bill's office some 25 years ago would build 25 years of friendship and connection. Bill was a rugby player, a manager, a coach, a referee, a tour coordinator, committee member, spectator, supporter, and lover of rugby union. And I asked Terry Shields, the director of rugby at the TDRU for the past 26 years, to share his thoughts on Bill and his positive influence on rugby union in North Queensland. Terry writes, "A gentleman, respectful, considerate, and caring are words that come to mind when discussing Bill and his positive influence on rugby union in North Queensland. This has been exemplified with the amount of people at rugby who have come to me over the last few weeks to share a story of Bill in general conversation, lamenting his passing. These people are teachers, coaches, presidents, life members, referees and players from all walks, clubs and associations. Not a bad word has been uttered, only stories of deep respect, gratitude and happiness. We have all developed in some aspects from what we have learnt from Bill, and this will continue well into the future, and I thank Terry for his thoughts. Throughout the 80s and 90s, rugby union thrived at Townsville Grammar School. During the 80s, There were overseas tours in 82, 84 and 86. Whilst in the 90s, there were overseas tours in 1990, 91, 93, 95, 97, 98 and 99. Students were selected in Brolgers, North Queensland, Queensland Country, Queensland and Australian squads. There were club rugby and schoolboy premierships. There were the first of many Archie Bell days, and there was the Metway Cup finals and semi-finals against Brisbane State High and Nudgee. The 1995 semi-final of the Metway Cup against Nudgee stands out for me. Played here on the Bill Muller Oval, the Nudgee side had half a dozen Australian schoolboys and a young man by the name of Alton Flatley running the show for the Nudgee. I'll never forget the atmosphere as the whole school stopped to watch from the sidelines. It was a super day. With the support of the school and staff, Bill had a huge role to play in the organisation and development of these tours, events, and the growth of his players. Bill provided the opportunity and the connection, and the students made the most of it. I asked Archie Bell, a graduate of the school in 1993 and a great friend of the Muller family, to share his thoughts on Bill, touring, and the Archie Bell Day. Archie writes, "When I heard the news about Billy, I'm man enough to acknowledge, I shed many a tear." Archie, you get me every time I bloody read this, mate. For me, he was more than a coach or a deputy principal. I felt that as well as Liam and Jono's father, he was our footy team's father. And that's how he treated us. In 1991, Billy took our under-15 team on a tour to New Zealand. I don't think we played a team our own age that tour, but Bill never used that as an excuse. He would just want us to dig in and have a crack and give it our best effort. Bill as a coach was tremendous. In 93, our final year, he organised a tour for the team to the UK, and what an experience that was. During the tour, Billy made sure that we were competitive and represented Grammar as best we could, but he also encouraged us to have a good time. In brackets, Archie's got here, Harper had more than a good time. He put on 10 kilos in 4 weeks. Obviously, those English breakfasts. In regards to the Archie Bell Day, that is something I'm still uncomfortable about, but the days were tremendous. Bill was in his element. He had his old pupils around him. I can remember the first one. After the game, we sat under the tree, just out from the toilets at the pool, and talked about the good old times for hours. Billy was in his element. Each year it happened, you could tell he was in his happy place. Archie continues, in finishing up, I wanted to mention our 20-year reunion. When the principal at the time introduced Bill to talk, the whole hall gave him a standing ovation. For me, that personified Bill and what he means to the Grammar community. Beautiful words, Arch. Throughout my time here at the Townsville Grammar School, I, along with my rugby union mates, were extremely lucky to represent the school in club and school rugby competitions. We treasured the opportunity to put on the black and gold jersey and to work hard for one another. Until 1999, upon completion of schooling at grammar school, there wasn't an opportunity for boys or girls to continue to play rugby under the banner of Townsville Grammar School. Students would either stop playing rugby altogether or spread out across a variety of senior rugby clubs in Townsville. Bill saw this as an opportunity to provide boys and girls with a pathway to continue to play rugby together for their senior years of rugby. So in 1998, with the support of 4 other foundation members and with the backing of the school, a senior rugby club was founded under the name of the Grammar Old Boys. I asked Dean Kavanagh, a graduate of the school in 1998, the first 15 captain and the first club captain of the Grammar Old Boys, to share his thoughts on Bill and on being the captain of the Grammar Old Boys. Dean writes, Bill earned the reputation as a great rugby coach and strategist many years ago, but those that had the privilege of playing under his tutelage will know his reputation was earned not only due to his knowledge and experience, but more importantly through his ability to make young men realise the importance of mateship and camaraderie. Strengths that he lent on heavily when convincing a group of 17-year-old boys to sing on assembly as a rugby choir. And it was very interesting. It was no surprise that Bill had a vision that would allow grammar kids the opportunity to continue to play rugby together through senior ranks, an opportunity to maintain the mateship that he helped etch into our characters and our hearts, and to continue to play rugby with our mates. He shared his vision of the Grammar Old Boys Rugby Club with Dean in Canada on a school rugby tour in 1998, and the vision expanded quickly and has now grown into a great man's legacy. I realised immediately the great opportunity, Dean continues, he realised the great opportunity he'd been provided as the first club captain of the Grammar Old Boys. The pride not only continuing on the grammar tradition with my mates, but also assisting to build Bill's legacy and gift to us all. He'll never truly be gone whilst we still have a club based on his strong support, morals, character and mateship. Thank you, Dean. Whilst the Grammar Old Boys Club may have changed its name in 2009 to the Northwood Old Boys, the connection with the school and the focus of mateship, character development and excellence has not been lost. The club has gone on to win premierships at under-19, women's, third grade and second grade TDOU competitions. Bill continued to support the club financially and as a spectator and was always available to pass on his words of wisdom. It was very fitting that in 2016, Bill, along with Stuart, two of the founding members, were inducted as our very first life members of our club. In receiving his life membership, I'm sure Bill felt a huge sense of pride and confidence that the club he had helped create was in a strong position to continue to provide a pathway for grammar and non-grammar students to play rugby in a supportive and positive environment. I asked Daniel Withers, a graduate of the grammar school in 2003 and the current club captain of Northwood Old Boys, to share his thoughts on Bill and on how the Northwood Old Boys plan to keep or uphold Bill's legacy. Daniel writes, I'm unfortunately, although I wish, not a direct product of Bill's immediate rugby tutelage. However, thanks to my older brothers, Bill's reputation was such that I knew his name before arriving. My first ever rugby training was on Bill Muller Oval some 20 years ago, and since then I've seen firsthand the massive footprint Bill has made in the local rugby community. Bill saw rugby through the same eyes I do, as an amazing vehicle for young people to develop the core values to succeed in life and to help players develop positive personality traits and qualities that only a team sport like rugby can develop. The committee, supporters and past and present players of Northwood Old Boys Rugby Club will forever be grateful to Bill 22 years ago for providing the opportunity to grammar students to play senior rugby together. As a club, we look forward well into the future to keeping his legacy alive and to help hand down these values through leadership, mentoring, coaching and a lifelong involvement in this sport, the same way they were handed down to me. What I'm mostly deeply proud of is being a direct product of Bill's legacy, even if it is indirectly. Thank you, Dan. This speech is me a snapshot of Bill's influence and the legacy he leaves behind. I'm sure everyone here today and those who are at home have a story or a connection or a memory of Bill, just like Terry, Archie, Dean, Dan and I have shared with you today. I encourage you now and into the future to continue to share these stories of a man who had such a positive influence on so many lives and will continue to do so well into the future. I would like to finish with some thoughts that I wrote the day after Bill's passing, if I can get through them. Last night, the world lost an incredible gentleman, a storyteller, an educator, a mentor, a motivator, a coach, a truly fantastic human. I, like many men and women, was privileged to spend time with Bill, discussing many things, including rugby, family, life, and education. It's those conversations in his presence that will stay with me forever and have gone a long way to shape me into the human that I've become today. I'm extremely grateful to have had Bill in my life, and my big wish is that my 3 kids find their Mr. Muller, as I was lucky to. Rest in peace, Mr. Muller. Thank you.
Thanks, Scotty. You did wonderfully well. I'd now like to introduce Alison Haley, past grammarian, 1983, and a girls' school captain. She's been a lawyer practicing and leading national and international law firms, now an internationally recognised mediation and alternative dispute resolution specialist. We are delighted that she's been able to return to the school for this occasion. Alison remembers well Bill's positive and enduring contribution to the lives of all of the students at Townsville Grammar School, and she's now going to share those experiences with you. Thank you.
In the finest traditions of our teacher, Mr. Muller, I'm here to have a word. On behalf of all those students for whom I am standing, we know we were a lucky bunch. None of us more so, dare I say, than the graduating class of 1983, because not only did we get to celebrate the retirement year of another great long-term deputy head in Hank von Wald, but more critically, we got to train a new one. His name was Bill Muller. In those very early days, the first task of the young boarders, one of which is here today, was to give our new leader a rhyming nickname. Hank the Yank was an obvious enough choice for the last one, and it led to a somewhat adolescent renaming of our Honourable Mr. Muller. So that it emerged that the new deputy's first task was how long it took him to shake off his nickname. Weirdly, within weeks, amongst those same kids, he became Mr. Muller. Just that, as the word went around that this Muller fellow seemed to be pretty okay. No matter what your experience or perspective was in attending the admin block or why you had been summoned to be there. My first sense of knowing that this teacher was something special was when I heard a friend of mine was back at school after a trauma. And I was walking around the school to find him. In those days, you didn't have phones. You actually had to go and speak to someone. And I went around to the logical places, the quadrangle, the science block, the boys' locker room even. And then I spied him sitting on a bench in the distance with his head down. But someone was with him, chatting. This is what the kids came to know as Mr. Muller having a word. It happened in all manner of circumstances, but we knew on any given occasion that Mr. Muller would be on it. Before long, Mr. Muller seemed to be everywhere, being deputy head, rugby coach, social science teacher, modern history teacher, and at one time even senior resident. And to the students who loved their rugby, the ability to get the best out of a team, combined with his extreme rugby tragic passion, meant that like no other, he was in their corner. But he would make it clear on rugby tours, I'm told, that that was no occasion for bad behaviour. What goes on tour, he'd say, stays on you. Because respect for the school and one another was critical. One incident made that all the clearer to one of Mr. Muller's modern history classes. It was 1985. He had just completed a number of games with his famed rugby team, of which Scott spoke of that era, playing teams from the UK, New Zealand and Japan. They played players much older than they were, much more experienced, much more well-resourced. And although they were remarkably competitive, in that set of games, they had no wins. And Mr. Muller copped a few ribbings that the team might be good, but they weren't good enough to win. One student in that class one day made that quip. It was one too many for Bill. He swung around. He told the student that he expected more of him. He then gave a rousing speech to the class about the importance of supporting your fellow students, about courage against the odds, and about the importance of school pride. That was the end of that class, and it was the last time anyone made a quip about that rugby team. It was not, of course, the only way that Bill would get kids to reflect on their behaviour. On one occasion, when a student was late back to class and stood waiting to explain to the teacher why he was running late after making arrangements for the school formal, the student got impatient at waiting and eventually sat down in a huff. He was chided by the teacher, and unfortunately it all went to custard and the student gave some lip back and was sent promptly to detention. And who was manning detention that day but Mr. Muller, the last teacher in the world that you would want to disappoint? Bill's response was to have a word, and it was simple. You don't have to do detention, but you should know better than to being a smart ass. And instead, you're going to go back there right now. You're going to wait for that teacher. You're going to take however long it takes, and you are going to apologise. To this day, that student learnt that Bill's valuable lesson in respect, what it means to give it and what it means to get it. And Mr. Muller earned his own respect from students, not because he was a teacher or a coach or a referee or a headmaster. He learned that because he dealt with all students with a sense of community, of connection, of humour, and above all, grace. And we learned along the way that the school fence and the end of enrolment were no barriers for Mr. Muller's concerned outreach. A student who was managing his mother's illness with terminal cancer in his last school year, which also sadly followed the death of his father a few years earlier, had left school to go to uni, but he found he wasn't coping and he dropped out. He made his way back to Townsville to take stock. And who was there? Mr. Muller. He was there to help him adjust to settling back into Townsville and to find his way back to recovery. If you were down, Mr. Muller could bring you up. It was not long ago that I sat with Bill chatting at length regarding the things that took him from South Africa to teach into Australia. In every word of that story, you could see how much teaching at grammar meant to him. The camaraderie with the teachers he loved and the kids he nurtured with often wry humour and sure affection. When we were chatting, he reeled off the names of so many students from our grade. And in saying this, our midpoint of the school was now 40 years ago. Fortunately, I was able to provide enough information on all those students to satisfy his curiosity. We then chatted about the challenges and joys of teaching over time. He was certainly a teacher who had a gift to allow kids a license to be kids, but to encourage a free-form discipline and collaborative learning culture that only great teachers can bring to a classroom. I look forward to every interaction with Mr. Muller, and in years later, when he became Bill, I valued the delightful perspective and reflection on the human condition. When I saw him recently, I wondered if he had much time left, and I took Julie aside to see how she was going. She said that the really wonderful thing about looking after Bill in that phase was that he was such extraordinarily good company. I couldn't help it, and when I went back to him, I told him that. And he brimmed with joy and then reflected on that with the same warmth and character that I had seen previously as a student when he was navigating the next challenge by having a word with some student about something, somewhere. So it is time, Mr. Muller, that we all had a word with you. We know that just as school fences and enrolment were never a barrier to your care, nor will the afterlife be a barrier to the gift you have given in teaching us each day what it is to be resilient, what it is to be generous, and what it is to be the best version of ourselves we can be. To Julie, Liam, and John and family, I should warn you that there was a competition amongst the students for many years to, at the end of the year, gift Mr. Muller with a tie that had to be worse than the one that was given to him the prior year. So in going through his things, you are going to find a box of collection of those ties that are the most horrendous things you have ever seen. So Tim Kelly, I think there are some more ties coming in the direction of the school museum. They should be labelled with a warning. So to his family, we give you our deep gratitude in allowing us to call him our own. We know that Bill will continue to guide us through our lives, which have been so enriched by his. Because it's been all too quiet here today, I invite all Mr. Muller's students, friends, and colleagues to stand if they can and give the greatest of cheers and ovation to our Mr. Muller. To Mr. Muller. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
What I'm tasked to do now is to bring the occasion to an end, but when I leave the microphone, as the advertisement on TV sometimes says, but wait, there's more, because I'm going to tell you what's going to follow my departure from the stage. We've been privileged to receive a number of video tributes for Bill from past grammarians and others who cannot be personally present on this occasion, but wish to participate nevertheless. And they've been put together, and when I leave the stage, you will see those video tributes. If you haven't seen big rugby players crying, you're about to, and that's a pretty novel situation, but it just demonstrates the strong feelings that many have for the privilege of having known Bill. Following that, the choir and orchestra and the school prefects will sing the school song. The prefects will then remain and give a rousing rendition of the school war cry. And can I invite every past grammarian, and anyone else indeed who wishes to join in, to come up to the front and join the prefects in the rendition of the war cry. There's not going to be any 1.5 metre spacing between anyone when you're up here, but if anyone complains, I'll look after that, okay? The ceremony will then close and there will be, as you leave, to take up my invitation to join us all together in the middle school plaza, which is out the door to my right and where you came in, and for morning tea. As you leave, the orchestra will begin playing the Raditsky March, and that's the signal for you to stand and move on, although I think Tim and I will probably get up first, and when we do that you can then follow. There is, fittingly, following the morning tea, a day of rugby that follows on the ovals, including the Bill Muller Oval, and this being the annual Grammar at Home Day. So if you're leaving and then going elsewhere, by all means leave through the middle school gate where you entered. If you're going to come to the rugby, there's a process that you have to follow so that we are maintaining obedience to the COVID-19 protocols that we have agreed to do in order to be able to hold this event. That is, you will also leave through the middle school gates, turn right, walk along the footpath on Paxton Street, and come back into the school, where I think you have to sign again as you come in. You do. That will be stage 2 of the day, and go in through the gate, which is next to school, next to Gatehouse and next to the pool, and towards the ovals. The final thing I just want to say is that to thank you all for attending this memorial service and valedictory, and to Julie and family, I just want to thank you for allowing us to share this wonderful occasion with you, and particularly for the fact that it is on the grounds of Townsville Grammar School, where Bill has left such an indelible and enduring and positive influence for so many students and others. I'll leave and the video presentation should then commence. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Dan McKellar here. I just wanted to send through a quick message recognising the enormous contribution that Mr Bill Muller had in my life and many others. Over the time that I spent at Grammar, I've got so many great memories, and Mr Muller honestly is at the heart of all of them. He was a tremendous educator, a great coach, mentor, and most importantly, he was a friend to us all, and I think that's what we'll all recognise today. And that's what stood out for me with Bill as a coach and as a school teacher. We had plenty of great ones at Grammar, But what stood out for me with Mr. Muller was that he genuinely cared for his students. He genuinely cared for his players. It wasn't just all about the results in the classroom or your performance on the rugby field. He cared for you and your family, and that was really a really special trait of that Mr. Muller had. I just want to pass on my thoughts to Mrs. Muller, Liam, and Jono. He's a great man, and I know that you're all very proud of him. And I hope that you all today can spend time over a beer or a champers and reminisce on the many great memories we had with Mr. Bill Muller, someone who we all love dearly. Thanks very much. I hope you have a great day and enjoy celebrating Bill's life.
Hi everyone, Nick Nicholas, school captain 1986. Very sorry to hear the passing of Bill Muller. My deepest condolences go out to his family. Look, Bill will be sorely missed. He was a huge contributor to the school, you know, and his legacy will go on for many years to come. During my time there, of course, he had the school humming on a day-to-day basis, but I think importantly, was a strong supporter of non-academic activities, and obviously rugby was one of those, and indeed Bill's the reason why I love rugby to this day. I still remember those rugby trips to New Zealand and other places. They were fantastic, and look, during my senior years, Bill was just a wonderful confidant. So again, Vale Bill Muller, and all the best to the family.
Firstly, to Bill's family, I just want to offer my heartfelt condolences for the situation that you're in at the moment. I've been asked to give an indication or a video of what Bill was like as a person, and I guess my best description as a Year 11 student, walking around the deputy principal, the new deputy principal at the school, I end up playing reserve grade cricket with him on the weekend. And when I reflect back on that, that must be tough, right? Where you're playing with a teammate, and then you're, you know, I wasn't probably the greatest student or the best behaved student in the school, but you know, Bill had a way of being able to attach friendship to both of those things, and that's a rare art, and that really describes the quality of the person and the human being that Bill was. And the reason he's so loved by all the students is because he had that capacity of giving you direction, but also being your friend and showing that he cared. So what an extraordinary talent, what an extraordinary man.
I was lucky enough to sit next to Bill at our last class reunion a couple of years ago. I enjoyed his company. He was on point as usual, and he had the dirt on everybody. To his two boys and his lovely wife, Mrs. Muller, who I remember, my condolences go out to you guys. And yeah, he was a good bloke and he'll be remembered.
Deepest condolences to the Muller family. Bill was a well-respected man on and off the field. Thinking of you all.
Hi, Gamarians, past and present. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give tribute to Bill Muller. Firstly, I'd like to just say condolences to his family. Bill was very instrumental in my life in the 80s and beyond, and he'll be sadly missed, and I hope you guys have a pleasant night to celebrate what a great person Bill was. Sorry I can't be there because of this virus. I would have loved to have been there, but I hope you all have a great night. Thank you very much. Bye.
My name's Ian Maslin, and firstly I just want to pass on my condolences to Julie, Jono and Liam. Bill Muller was a wonderful man, an important figure in my life, and I've reflected on it a lot lately, and I think he treated everyone with respect and care. I think that was responded in spades. A great man.
Hi, I'm Grant Bloxham. I attended Townsville Grammar School. At my time there, Bill was the deputy headmaster and head of rugby. Bill had a real passion for rugby, and he instilled that on me and many of my friends. He was a great manager, very well respected by all of us. He could be tough at times, but also gave us a pass on many occasions, and thank God for that. We'll all miss him. He was a great man.
Go. Hello everyone from Townsville Grammar School. Sam Scott Young here. I'm sorry I can't be there for my great mate Bill Muller's memorial. He's a great man. It's an honour to be able to say just a quick story about Bill. Obviously, I had my time in grade 8, and because Bill and the principal at that stage said I was too intelligent, they moved me on to another school. And then obviously playing rugby got me back to Townsville Grammar in grade 12 when I repeated. Bill said to me, look, you go down to the Australian Schoolboys Trials, we want you up as a leader in this school, and I'll look after your TE score. Well, I played well and obviously brought great pride, I do hope, to Townsville Grammar. But Bill forgot the other part of the story, so unfortunately I'm the only bloke to repeat grade 12 and get a lower TE score. We've all got to pass away at some stage. Bill, miss you.